The Giants have some intriguing yet unproven potential starting pitchers on the cusp of the major leagues, several of whom have major league experience. So, on today's Locked On Giants, we're going to do a mailbag episode, and one of the questions is who among those starters is likely to get the most action for the San Francisco Giants in 2022? So, we'll break that down and so much more on today's Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants Baseball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already. And coming up on today's show, it is a mailbag episode. We're dipping into the archives here. These are some questions I haven't had a chance to get to in recent days and weeks, and we're going to get to them now. First question comes from Tape Bubba, who asks, who in pitching development pipeline is going to start the most games for the 2022 Giants? And so this is a question I've been sitting on for a while because there are a number of intriguing candidates. For those of you who are regular listeners of this show, you know I've been talking a lot about Tyler Beede, mostly because he's out of minor league options. And so my inclination is to go with Beede. I don't know if he really counts as like the pitching development pipeline that you're asking about, because he is definitely older. He doesn't count really as a prospect anymore, but he was a former first round pick by the Giants in 2014. He was the 14th overall pick, and he's got 125 career innings. So I don't know if he actually counts, but I just want to tell his story really briefly. Of course, he looked dominant to end the 2019 season. His last game of that season, he had to be removed with an injury, but I think he went like 3 perfect innings with a ton of strikeouts. And his last several outings of that season combined, including a game when he allowed 6 runs, he was dominant for like a stretch of 5 starts, counting a game where he had a blow up. So, yeah, Tyler Beede is just someone to watch because he's out of minor league options. They can't just send him down. And so I would expect him to be on the staff and potentially earn his way to making starts. He might start out as a multi-inning reliever, but I think he might get a chance to start at some point. He could even be like an opener for a few innings at a time. But the other names to watch here, Sammy Long signed to a minor league contract last year and with an invitation to spring training, and he really impressed in spring training and then put up a 2.05 ERA in AAA, which is a really hitter-friendly environment. He also had a 3.00 ERA in AA, and he climbed the ranks. He started out in A-ball and worked his way all the way to AAA in the major leagues. And he did make 5 starts for the Giants in 2021. So he's another candidate, and he should be considered one of the Giants' better pitching prospects at this point in time. And of course, he's on the 40-man, so I would look out for him to continue to get opportunities in 2022. A new name that's intriguing enters the mix here, and that's Sean Jelly. He was the Giants' second-round pick in 2018, the year they took Bart with their first selection, and Jelly has been added to the 40-man out of necessity. because he needed to be protected from the Rule 5 draft. The Giants had to add him to the 40-man roster, otherwise he would have been eligible to be taken, although the Rule 5 draft has been canceled. It may be rescheduled, but because of the lockout, there was no major league portion of the Rule 5 draft, and that's what we're talking about here for Jelly to be selected. But anyway, so he's on the 40-man now, and the way the Giants use the 40-man roster, they use their players. And obviously, when you first get added to a 40-man roster, you have 3 minor league option years. When we say minor league options, you can be optioned up and down any number of times during a year, and that's only one option that gets used up. And so I don't think Jelly's going to break camp and start the year with the Giants, although it's possible, but I think unlikely. And so they would probably send him down, and then they could call him up any number of times and then send him back down without burning an additional option. So I would imagine that Jelly is going to make some appearances this year. He's been exclusively a starter in his minor league career. He's never pitched out of the bullpen. Jelly, of course, 6'11", and so he provides forces hitters to deal with some tough angles being such a tall pitcher. And so between Jelly, Long, and Beatty, it's really hard to say. Also, Kervin Castro, who pitched exclusively out of the bullpen in 2021, was a starter for the Giants in 2019 in the low levels of the minors. So he's someone who has starting experience. I do think they'll just keep him in this bullpen role where he had a lot of success, but he's just kind of a dark horse name to look out for in terms of someone who could get some starts for the Giants next season. So Beatty, Long, and Jelly, I'll probably go. It's hard to say between those three, but I would imagine it's going to be one of those three. So coming up next, more questions and answers. There's a question about Darin Ruf and if he deserves more playing time, and so we'll get to that next. But first, I've been hearing a lot about Stance apparel lately, especially because they just launched a new line of active apparel. Plus, it's holiday gift-giving time, and Stance is pretty much the coolest gift you can give. They're incredibly comfortable and well-made with their socks, shirts, joggers, and hoodies. Stance is different than old, boring socks, underwear, and apparel that we'd always have to settle for back in the day. Stance changed that mindset by offering color, comfort, and creativity like no other. Founded in 2009, Stance Apparel represents a radical reinvention of socks, underwear, and active apparel. With a sharp focus on comfort, quality, and creativity, Stance brings an atypical aesthetic alongside pop culture's hottest collaborators for the ultimate in style and self-expression, because everything you wear should be a direct extension of who you are and how you feel. Stance believes that the perfect fit matters more than fitting in, that those who feel good do good. Go see for yourself, register for an account at stance.com, and get 15% off your first purchase. Use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout to apply. Enjoy the color and comfort of a life less ordinary with Stance. All right, here we go. We're going to get to more questions. The first question took up all of our time, but hopefully we'll get a few more in now. Thanks for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Next question comes from Sam Berg, who asks, do you think Darin Ruf could get regular/everyday playing time in left field next year? This is an interesting one because there's a case to be made. There were different points in 2021 during which it looked like Darin Ruf may get an opportunity for more regular playing time and not just being a platoon guy. Ruf, of course, as a right-handed platoon guy, doesn't start as often as a left-handed platoon player would start. So he's been a real difference maker with the bat since he put on a Giants uniform, but he hasn't really gotten a shot for everyday playing time. When Brandon Belt was injured kind of earlier in the year, Darin Ruf was getting an opportunity to start at first base against all comers, against lefties and against righties. And then he blew out his hamstring in Arizona. Does anyone remember that? It was really sad to see. You could just see the look of utter disappointment on Ruff's face because he knew he was getting a shot for an everyday role, which is a big jump for a guy from being on the weak side of a platoon, meaning you're only facing lefties and there are less lefties, so we call it the weak side of a platoon, to being an everyday guy. It would just be a huge deal for him, and he was hitting well in that game. He was red hot during that stretch, and then even in that game when he blew out his hamstring, he had hit a rocket into left center field. And there was also a point later in the year when the Giants were having some issues in the outfield, and it just became apparent that Darin Ruf should just be playing more often. And so anyway, it's a very valid question. However, all of that said, I think it's still unlikely, and it would have to be that there's an injury that would cause Darin Ruf to be given that opportunity to play pretty much every day. Now, it is possible, like the way that their outfield is currently constructed. They have Lamont Wade Jr. coming back. They have Mike Yastrzemski coming back. They have Austin Slater, and they have Steven Duggar. So that's 3 lefties and a righty in Slater, and then, of course, a righty in Ruf. So let's say Ruf is your everyday left fielder, and then in center, I suppose you could have, I don't know, Steven Duggar, and then in right, you've got Mike Yastrzemski, and maybe, here's the issue. Okay, I guess, so I've just benched Lamont Wade Jr., so I guess maybe in center, you've got Yaz, and in right, you've got Wade Jr., or vice versa. Flip them. They're kind of both fringy in center and good in a corner to me, but then you've got Duggar on the bench and Slater on the bench. I guess the idea is that if there's a left-handed pitcher, Ruf would still be out there, and Slater would be probably in center, and then either Yastrzemski or Wade Jr. would be in right. But I guess there's a chance of that. I just don't particularly see it happening. I think the Giants like what they're able to do with their platoon system. The thing is, they'd be lacking an additional right-handed hitter to be that third member of the platoon. The outfield is kind of a mess as it is. They've got decent players, kind of a bunch of them, like 5 guys who have some kind of value, but there's not like a clear everyday player unless you're counting Ruf. The thing is, defensively, while better than expected given his size, you're certainly not getting like a plus defender in Ruf, and you sometimes see not the greatest defense. But I don't know. I just think that they see a lot of value in what they're able to get when they platoon there. And the thing about Ruf, while still productive against right-handed pitching, he definitely has more swing and miss and strikeout when facing right-handed pitchers. So I think, especially, we didn't even mention there the designated hitter likely coming to the National League. And I think that instead of having Ruf be an everyday starter in the outfield, you could have him like starting sometimes in the outfield against maybe left-handed pitchers, and then if there's a righty on the mound, he definitely could be an option to just be in there as a DH, as one of your better hitters, period, even against right-handed pitching. So I think that's more likely. If we see everyday playing time out of Ruf, it'll be because of the designated hitter. I think that would lead. He's probably the best option that they have right now. If they're platooning at most spots and then you just have this extra spot in your lineup, why not give it to Darin Ruf unless you have a superior offensive player? But I'm not sure that you're going to find that, even though it would be a right-on-right matchup. So the Giants roster is kind of, it's hard to, you could put the pieces a number of different ways, so it's hard to say, but I think that he deserves a shot, and he probably will get it at some point, but it may be because of injuries. Anyway, that was a long-winded answer to that question. Next question comes from Keith Ski. who asks your personal wants and hopes to come out of a new CBA. So this is the question of the hour. The lockout is ongoing, of course, and we just had a report yesterday that the two sides, the league and the Players Association, aren't expected to even discuss core economics until January. And of course, core economics is kind of the crux of their disagreements right now, and what they're going to have to get through in order to finally reach an agreement, assuming one ultimately does get reached, which of course it will, but it's just a matter of how long that will take. So it's going to be a while, but my personal wants, I want the players to come out of it feeling like they have an agreement that they're happy with, because I personally want the two sides to stop being such bitter rivals. They're naturally rivals, right? They are natural enemies, quote unquote. And so, but in recent years, it's become more and more ugly, and there's a lot of distrust, and you have players kind of mouthing off about the commissioner and the league office and on and on. But in some ways, I think the player side is a little bit, I don't know exactly what the word is, but I read a long article, some of you probably read it as well, in The Athletic about their lead negotiator, kind of a hotshot lawyer who's worked in other sports for players associations and has had a lot of success. But one of the things he said kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and that was something about how there's teams are, what did he say? He said that analytics basically has led to groupthink. That's what he said. There was groupthink among teams with an obsession for analytics, which I just think this attack on analytics, it's a player, there's a lot of players who naturally kind of don't like or distrust analytics. But basically, I mean, they're into analytics too, just bad ones. Like they're, batting average, RBIs, home runs, triple crown, pitcher win-loss record. Those are statistics that have historically meant so much to baseball. It just so happens there are much better ones. And so I know I'm going off on a tangent here, and that wasn't really your question, but I don't want to see, what I'm saying is that I don't want to see the game kind of put a stop to the influence of analytics. I don't want to see I don't know, a ban on shifts. I kind of understand. I've kind of softened on a lot of my stances, but I don't want to see any radical changes to kind of try to quell analytics. I think that what I would like to see is a raise to the minimum salary. I think that would be a great starting point, because so many players never even reach arbitration. So at least $1 million, maybe $1.5 million or something, a big increase to the minimum salary. And then that would have the effect of raising arbitration prices and potentially even raising free agent prices as well. And also the possibility of reaching arbitration sooner, maybe after 2 years instead of 3 years. But from a league perspective, I don't know. I mean, the collective, the luxury tax, I think, could be pushed back. I don't like how the luxury tax acts as kind of a cap, and that most teams are refusing to go above it, even though it's not a cap. And yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of different possibilities to come out of this, but I would say a raise to the minimum salary is kind of my big thing, but also I don't want to see too much fundamental change that kind of just prevents innovation and smart thinking about how to approach the game from a team building and game, the quality of the game on the field. I don't want to see that stepped on because players are afraid of what they don't understand. So that's a little bit of a harsh way of saying it. But again, pro player, I want the players to be paid more when they're at their most valuable. And I think raising the minimum salary would help to accomplish that. So anyway, coming up next, we've got more questions and answers. So stay tuned for that. But first, BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues the march to the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. As promised, we are going to get to more questions here. Let's see. We've got a lot of different questions. Rude Boy 223 asks, to piggyback off some of the Carlos Correa questions, why don't they just go after him? With a year left for Longoria, I know Farhan can get creative with a trade even if they have to eat a chunk of the salary. After losing Posey and possibly Belt after next year, Correa becomes the captain. And I understand the question, and we went into kind of detail about Carlos Correa a few episodes ago. If you're interested, there was a mailbag episode where we spent a lot of time talking about Carlos Correa, but I'm just going to repeat myself a little bit here. The talent is undeniable. The positional fit, I do agree with you that if this was the perfect player for them, absolutely there's a way to make it work. Longoria under contract for just one more year. Correa would become your third baseman. And when Crawford leaves, potentially after 2 years, Correa could possibly slide back over to shortstop. I just don't know if he's the right fit personality-wise for this team. They have put such an emphasis on no jerks, to put it, in PG terms. And I just don't know. I don't know. I haven't followed Carlos Correa super closely. You always see things that you didn't see. When a player plays for your team, you get to know them really, really well if you're following the team every day. And when you're following teams from afar and you're only seeing them in certain games and certain moments, you maybe don't pick up certain things. But from what I've seen from Correa, it pretty much for me started with the cheating scandal and the way Correa handled some of the questions and the defensiveness, and I don't know, it just rubbed me the wrong way, and I'm just not sure that the Giants want to bring that into their franchise. But at the same time, he's a generational kind of talent, and he would drastically improve the Giants. And so I'm kind of on the fence about it, but I just think the odds of him signing elsewhere are just so much greater than the odds of him signing with the Giants. But you guys have me tempted, like the way so many people have asked about Correa, and I understand. He's far and away the best talent remaining in the free agent class, and arguably the top talent of all players, maybe with the exception of Corey Seager, who got 10 years, $325 million, by the way, and Correa's likely to best that. So it's not going to come cheaply, and that's a large commitment, and you better feel darn sure that that's the right player for your team, and I'm just not sure that that's true. Last question comes from Ricky, who says, do you think the Giants have moved off of Kris Bryant? It seems they may be willing to let someone else overpay. And I've gotten questions about Bryant a ton as well. I don't think they've moved off of him. I think that they're going to continue to monitor his market. He is a Scott Boras client, and those clients often aren't signed deep into the offseason. Obviously, we're on hold right now. But I think if the price comes down, then the Giants will be more interested. But yeah, they're not going to do what they consider to be an overpay for Kris Bryant. We saw firsthand, good player, not necessarily great, and he might get paid like a great player, and I don't think the Giants are going to overreach just to bring him in. But if other teams kind of feel the same way, I think there's a chance that the price falls to a more reasonable level, closer to $100 million, say, over around 5 years. than 200 million over like 6, 7, 8 years, which, we've seen predictions that range from 90 million to 200 million by legitimate sources. So he's someone to continue to watch. There's mutual kind of respect there, although Bryant has probably undoubtedly heard these rumblings that we've heard that the Giants just may not be that interested in him. And that's probably something he takes a little bit personally. How could you not? And so, yeah, we shall see. But until he signs elsewhere, I would consider the Giants one of the more likely teams to sign him, even if it's like 20% odds. That's still pretty high when you consider, the odds of any individual team signing him. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on Bryant for now, and we'll have to wait to find out with Correa and Bryant. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to be doing a crossover with Millard Thomas from Locked On D-backs, talking about the Giants offseason and the top remaining free agents and where they fit best going forward, which ones fit on the Giants. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again tomorrow. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.